Bring in celebrity lawyer Nick Freeman. Nick, morning to you.
Morning, James.
Lots to talk about here. Last week it seemed like it was all heading to be a court case. What's changed?
I think the moment of reality, as time goes on, Prince Andrew and his lawyers are aware of the evidence against him, and that there's nothing that crystallises the mind more than D-Day being around the corner. And his lawyers have obviously, for some time, been urging him to settle this. 97% of all cases in America, civil cases, are settled, and it's clearly the right thing. And it's just a case, I think, of the prince deciding, yes, this is the right course. He's undoubtedly been put under pressure by senior members of the royal family because of the celebrations that are due this year. This will be a huge cloud over those. So there's a combination of different reasons that have brought about a complete change of heart very rapidly. I think that the sudden changes surprised people, but very shortly he was about to give a deposition. He was going to be questioned about his sex life, intimate parts of his sex life. That's not really the sort of thing that anyone wants to discuss in the public domain, but particularly someone like Prince Andrew. So I think for all those reasons and more, a deal has now been done. And that was the right thing to do. Arguably, it should have been done much sooner, because the longer this has dragged on, the more damage to Prince Andrew and the more damage to the royal family. They've been heaped with embarrassment, as has he. And of course, after that interview that you referred to, his credibility really wasn't intact. And it's also important to bear in mind, I know, he denies the allegations, and of course, there's no concession in the statement, in the settlement, that there's no admission of liability, and there's no apology, and that is significant. And both sides can spin victory in different ways, but the reality is there's no admission, there's no apology, and the proceedings will be withdrawn, which means in effect the case has not been proved against him. So he can equally claim a victory and say that, look, I've done this on advice because for a whole host of different reasons, but I still maintain my denial. So it can be spun both ways.
All right. Do you think we'll get any more information about the case now?
I think both sides will be keen to just sit quiet now. Certainly both sides can't talk about it. Mrs. Giuffre, is able to talk about it, but not until after the conclusion of the celebrations. So she in effect is gagged for some time for obvious reasons, but then she is free to talk about it. But I think, by the time that is over, people will want to move on. They've heard enough about it. It will be old news at that time in terms of, is there anything more interesting to talk about? We've heard it all before. Let's now move on. You've been paid and your charity's been paid. We will know, of course, how much the charity has received, and no figures are being branded in the press this morning. There will be a record as to the amount that goes to the charities, and by simple mathematical deduction, we will have some inclination in terms of some idea as to how much she's received herself.
Interesting. Good talking to you, Nick. It's a fascinating case, isn't it? But did you think it would always be settled out of court?
I have to say I did. I was interviewed some time ago, and I did say I would be urging Andrew's lawyers to be doing a deal as quickly as possible. Get this at an embryonic stage. It's damage limitation. I think it's also worth mentioning that the amount, the alleged amount, is probably larger than would have actually been awarded in a court settlement, which is interesting. But that, of course, was the incentive to settle it and spare everyone's blushes. But yes, I did think it would be settled. But as far as the public are concerned, and they would say, look, if someone had accused me of doing something so heinous, would I roll over and pay a load of money if I hadn't done it? Members of the public will draw their own conclusions in relation to that. So it is a fascinating story.
Nick, good talking to you, celebrity lawyer, with his thoughts on the Prince Andrew story. It's all over.